I'm joined today by someone who's been recently listed in Entrepreneur.com's 50 online marketing influencers to follow in 2016. Welcome to international SEO consultant Aleyda Solis.
Hello, how are you, David?
I'm very well indeed. How are you?
Very good, very happy to be here sharing with you today. Very exciting.
And just a second ago, sharing with your followers on Snapchat as well.
I was. You know, you need to try. Even if I am like definitely, I am a search person. I am all about organic search and growth. However, I have been lately using more and more Snapchat. I have also done a few tests with social ads. So it's about getting ideas, identifying opportunities, seeing how you can integrate and leverage more of the platforms to get tractions of for your content and goals. But it's really nice, really nice. I have been having a lot of fun with it, I must say, for sure.
Do you think that SEOs will still or can still be successful in the future if they ignore social completely?
I think that for me, SEO nowadays is about optimizing whatever you have to offer, your presence in any searchable platform. The reality is, for good or for bad, that in the Western world, that means that you need to be findable in Google. However, in other countries, well, there are other search platforms, like for example in Russia you have Yandex, and even not only search engines, but social platforms where you really want to be findable if you identify that your audience is there, looking for content, looking for information, and where you can provide a meaningful experience to them and interact with them to make them convert or to provide support or whatever type of actions you want to leverage through the customer journey. But for example, Pinterest, Facebook, although, and I was talking before about the social ads, right? The reality is that the organic visibility that you can get with a few of these platforms like Facebook is not necessarily the best, unfortunately. However, I think that there's still a lot of opportunity, and more I believe that search and social will be much more integrated. People is using more and more social platforms not only to share their stuff, but they are, because they also offer additional functionalities. People is using them also to look for information. The other day, actually, I was seeing that now the location pages that Facebook provides for places, they look like Foursquare pages now, really. So I can definitely see how they can become a Foursquare type of, or Yelp type of competitor. And so it can be useful, and there's so much data and there's so much information being shared there that definitely it will be a waste not to leverage it, and maybe not for specifically a transactional type of goal, but just to gain visibility, to have a platform where you can promote your content and interact with your community in many different ways that can be used and can be useful for search too. For sure. So yeah.
Can you see in the future some local businesses only having Facebook pages and only having an experience inside Facebook and not having to have their own websites?
You know what? The fact is that I remember that a year and a half ago, Google published in the Webmaster blog, they published like a little checklist for small businesses. And they were like saying like the minimum viable presence that you need to have, like that your local business needs to have online. And they were recommending that in case they couldn't have an actual presence with their own website, they could create only a presence in Google Plus for business places, or whatever it's called today, because every once in a while it's called another way. But yes,
if you don't know what it's called, what hope do the rest of us have?
the platform that for business, and I remember a comment by David Mim on Twitter saying, "Oh my God, this is so bad! Like why you are recommending like businesses to not own their own property, like their own presence, and have the control of their own stuff, right? But coincidentally, the fact is that more and more I have heard stories of a smaller type of companies, businesses, local companies, who the reality is that the easier way for them to manage their presence online is to start with platforms that already exist. Will Yelp, for example, with the Google Plus for business presence, with a Facebook page, and it's a far easier way for them to get comments, to get requests, to be searchable, identifiable, and not going into the trickiness of developing their own website, etc., etc. There are also more and more companies providing services and packages for these little companies, right? Like the companies who usually were before the Yellow Pages providers, right? And now they have this type of I give you the hosting, I give you the website, I'll give you a little bit of Google AdWords, I give you the social presence, things like that, right? So I can definitely see how for some companies that's even right now a reality, and might likely be also the minimum viable presence that they might start with. Of course, I can definitely see how it's not ideal, and how having your presence not under your own control is not necessarily the best recipe for success in the long term, for sure.
So do you not think it's a little bit of a risk having businesses not having their own presence, their own website in the future? What if Facebook decided to close down their presence, or Google did the same thing to them? Is that not a big risk?
Yeah, for sure. That is why I mentioned before. It's not really the ideal situation.
Okay, yeah.
You want to be in control of your own presence, for sure. What happens if tomorrow Facebook says, "Oh, for some reason, political reason or whatever type of decision, that business decision, I don't want to allow you to do this X or Y that is vital for you, right, for your business." So you're screwed. You don't want to be in that position. You want to be in control of your own presence, and at the end of the day, control what you are really going to offer, the way that you want to interact with your user, and end up converting them or connecting with them in different ways. But yeah, unfortunately, this I can see how it's already a reality for many businesses. So that is why I think, I have also again seen a few SEOs saying, "Oh, this minimum viable presence that and service that is provided as packages to this little business." Again, it's not ideal, because these are WordPress websites with not a really optimized necessarily presence, and there's so much to be done there. However, I must say that, of course, that is better than not having your own website and be that another company's platform and depending on a third-party platform. And of course, there's always the ideal presence, and then what is achievable and reasonable and cost-effective for businesses, independent on their capacity and what is really feasible for them to invest.
So in terms of bigger companies, you're also an international SEO expert. How has international SEO changed over the last few years?
Nowadays, there are many more functionalities, and for you to correctly inform search engines, Google in this case mostly, to indicate to which market, to which language and country market you are targeting. Because unfortunately, a lot of the challenges of internationalization process is that first there was not a clear vision of which is the market that you really should target to, or that you should really focus on. A lot of businesses, they didn't know if they were really targeting the language or the country. I am targeting the Spanish speakers, all Spanish speakers worldwide, or only Spanish speaker in Spain, or Spanish speaking people in Mexico. which audience, right? So that was the most basic, and it didn't help that also Google didn't provide guidelines, specific guidelines, and ways to indicate those. Since a couple of years, there are more and more tools, like, for example, hreflang annotations. You can validate hreflang annotations also in the Google Search Console, which is very, very handy. More and more crawlers, like, for example, OnPage and Deep Crawl and Screaming Frog, that make it much more easy also to validate this validation of the configuration of these annotations. And also Google has developed the capacity to understand that not because you have a certain IP means that necessarily you are targeted to that country specifically because of CDNs, for example, and many other type of characteristics. Also, more and more Google is starting to crawl from different IPs, not only IPs based in the US that are coming from the US, because a lot of times in the past that happened, and then if you were always redirecting the user agents coming from certain country to a specific presence, then you ended up only taking the search crawlers to a specific version of your site, for example. So all this more and more is improving. There are much more functionalities and ways to do it. Although I have to say that there's still a long way, I would say, for companies to really leverage the power of global marketing, international audiences, and which is in many situations still a low-hanging fruit for expansion and growth that a lot of people is still afraid of, and sometimes they don't target it as they should.
It's tricky for some companies because, as you said, these facilities for SEOs have really just become available over the last couple of years to be able to really help define to search engine crawlers exactly what a website should be targeting in terms of country and language and lots of other areas. What are a few of the things that you think a website developer or an SEO can be doing now that is likely still to be relevant and the right thing to be doing in 4 years' time in 2020?
Yes, for me it is based. Oh my God! Now you have saying 4 years, 2020. I was like, 2020 is like in 5-6 years. 4 years, I feel old already.
3 years and 8 months or so.
Crazy. We live in the future now. So I think that all these validations that have more to do with the type of targeting that you can use, whatever type of configuration. I mean, the tools that the search engines are going to give us to implement this targeting might be different, can be another talk, but the goal that is achievable with it is the same, and this is the right targeting. To validate well if you are targeting first to languages or then to countries, to make sure that you target the audiences that are really profitable for you and where you will have like a reasonable potential from the existing search volume or the expected search volume there, and then that you are also able to compete with the main players there. So that is basic, and sometimes I think that is basic now, and it should be basic in the future. Unfortunately, still now I see how a lot of businesses lack of this type of validation, and they say, like, for example, oh yes, and next year we want to target Europe, and that we will have like English speaking version for Europe. Yes, because in Europe we all speak English, right? So it's like this for a lot of American companies, or then now we are going to target Latin America as a whole, right? And it's like, yeah, because everybody in Latin America speaks in the exact same way with the exact same terms, and it's not at all like that, right? So it's very, very important to validate well which are really the countries, the specific markets where you have the traction, where you have the potential, where it's feasible for you from a business perspective, operational perspective, resources that you have to operate there, and then also where it is viable for you to compete with a certain amount of strategies that you can set for that market. So that is going to be still relevant today and tomorrow. Then what is still going to be relevant, I think, is an opportunity that I believe will continue to still be there and exist in 4 years, which is the fact that the US market and maybe the British market and then maybe a few European markets are far more competitive than any other markets that speak also all the languages. So for example, if you do a search for even a competitive sectors in the financial world or property market or travel market, even relatively competitive market, if you do that search in the UK or in the US, you will see the type of websites that are ranking there, the link profile, how optimized they are from a content, technical perspective, every SEO metric. And then you do that in Mexico or you do that in Argentina, even if they are one of the top Spanish-speaking markets in Latin America, and you will see the difference because definitely the type of websites, the web ecosystem that exists in those countries is not as developed, and also at the same time the type of filters and algorithm that Google is using in this market is also, well, it cannot requires that much as in the US and as in Europe. Otherwise, no website will be ranking.
So do you think it's actually a different algorithm that they're using in those countries, or is it simply
maybe the same algorithm that we had a few years here, I guess?
And is that because of the fact there's not enough websites for the algorithm to be able to evolve?
I think it's pretty logical that that's the reason. Otherwise, they will end up with 5 websites in all of their search, and it's something that is also not useful for users, and so it needs to evolve, right? What is first, the websites or the filters to show the website? So it needs to go hand by hand. It's evolving for sure. A few of my top clients are in Latin America, and I can see how they are investing so much and doing so much and a lot of things that will be still competitive in the European market, but it's definitely behind still, and there's so much to do. And for that is the strategy that companies like Rocket Internet have followed until now, right? They go to emerging markets where they identify that they can easily replicate models that have already worked in the e-commerce world in Europe and the US, and they are super successful because they go with a very specific model that they replicate, right? And so I think that there's a huge opportunity. So that's my point. There's a huge opportunity. I think that of course it's going to evolve much more in the next 4 years, but it's going to still be behind the Europe and the US. So that can be something to think about and to plan to leverage at some point if you want something easier and low-hanging fruit to expand to. Yeah.
So what if a business wants to participate in the UK and the US markets at the moment? Is it absolutely essential to have different websites and have regionally targeted content, or will one English language site be sufficient, do you think?
The ideal way to target independent audiences, country-based ones, is in the most granular way. And in this case, it is with CCTLDs, with a .co.uk website for a business targeting Britain, and then .com website targeting the US, both in English, however, to really identify the type of queries, specific terms that the audience in each country are using, because they are likely different. Also, the tonalities are different. The preference of the users, even if the products are the same, might be different. What is your number one product in the US might not be necessarily the number one product and the one that people would like to buy the most from you in the UK necessarily, right? So it's about as granular as you can, and the best way from an SEO perspective is to establish independent entities using CCTLDs for the countries. And the problem there, usually, even if this is the ideal situation, right, is when you are starting from scratch in a very competitive industry, and when you analyze and you are doing the analysis for that country, who are you competing against and who you will end up competing against, and you see that these are websites with million incoming links and a lot of linking domains and a lot of authority and a great profile and million pages index. So you cannot start from scratch with a with a CCTLD that has no history and has little content index and no links, right? So then it comes how you establish the strategy to be able to compete with that, and you're able to grow at the beginning. And sometimes it happens that the best way is if you have an original generic domain that you can use, and then you'll target that specific directory to initially target that market. Might be better because you will be able to leverage the authority that you had with that previous domain, with your older domain, and wait until you grow a specific presence in that market where you are able to compete only there versus your competitors to enable that additional CCTLD, right? So it's to identify opportunities there, and what is ideal and what is viable for you too.
Exactly, and also some businesses want to use the same language on their blog and actually have just the one blog for, say, the US and the UK, but perhaps different pages on their website for the different countries. So that's a challenge, and it's difficult to get an ideal solution for that.
Yeah, well, for example, I can understand how there are businesses. Well, for example, the business model is not relatively like sensible to the location. Like, for example, a blog talking about technology, talking about iPhones or computers, right? I mean, it's the same model worldwide. Likely, it's the same type of computer that is being released by Apple that you want to cover, things like that, right? So I understand how in this case, maybe there are some terms, like for example, in the US, they still call the mobile cell phone still a little bit more than mobile, although it's changing little by little. So there are still things that, yes, it would be ideal that you can really target the US market with these terms, and even from an informational perspective, not only to transactional one. However, it might be even less critical, I would say, that in all the markets, for example, if you have an e-commerce and from the delivery to the currency to sizes, everything is really should be really targeted to the market that you are targeting to. So yeah.
I'd love to get a few thoughts of yours also on things like the SERP and website design as well. And you're offering a lot of great information here. I don't want to stop you here, but
No worries.
you know, you've obviously only got so much time as well. With regards to the SERP, how do you think that might change? We've seen adverts disappear from the right-hand side. Will we see the introduction of social or video results in the SERP quite soon, do you think?
I think that Google is mobilizing, and it's funny because I'm showing my font that is bigger than my head here. But yes, Google is mobilizing the results. If you see the fact that Google is only showing now ads at the top of the SERPs and not in the right side, which is the same type of experience that they already provide on mobile. So it's like we are going mobile first now, and the reality is that there are going to be many other ways to interact with content and to do searches. Like for example, web and app integration with search. At some point, and this has already started to happen with app indexing, right? So at some point, it's going to be as usual to obtain apps in search results than websites, and I can imagine that there should be an easier way to open the app directly there without much hassle. Something like, for example, what is happening right now also with AMP type of results, that right there, you open them, it's not really like a much hassle for the user. So I can see how there are certain ways that Google is improving their search. First, to make it, to keep it as useful as possible. Second, to be able to discover any type of content, whatever this content is. It's not only web-based, but also app-based. Then for them is yes, performance, and they are doing this with the AMP initiative, etc. Then we have also another characteristic of mobilization of the search, which is voice search, right? And predictive type of results, which we have also with Google Now and the cards that that I get whenever I have a flight and I am like, oh, Aleyda, you are already late for your flight. Go to your. So it's more and more about those, and also, for example, the type of searches and queries that you can do, for example, with Alexa of Amazon. That for me is like even an evolution of what we can have with Siri or Google now.
And you mentioned app results and the search results. Do you think that Google may be forced to also display app results for iOS as well as Android?
Well, they have already started to integrate and to take into consideration app indexing for iOS too. However, they are still only showing the result for a certain partners that they are working with. But yes, at some point they will incentivize. I can definitely think of ways that they may want to incentivize apps that are living in the iOS app store to implement app indexing to get even more visibility, and that will be a huge play for them for sure. Also to gain more on the market of the app market and get that information for sure. They have already said that they want to not only be able to support app indexing for apps that have a related website, but even independent apps that have no website related to them. So that says a lot, definitely, for me.
And what about artificial intelligence? How's that affecting SEO at the moment, and how's it going to change, and is it going to impact things more in the future?
Yeah, a lot has been said about Rambraid, right? And Rambraid, and every week we hear about a new post, and even there are jokes around, like, oh, a new post about Rambraid. What do they say? Something additional. For me, this is very, very interesting, because at the end of the day, everything what has been done until now, first we saw a lot of manual actions, like in a much more primitive era of search, regarding the quality and how to identify the most relevant presence for a specific query. Then we see all these algorithmical improvements that we have been seeing with Penguin, with Panda, Phantom now at a much more recurrent basis that sometimes we don't even know, and the answer of Googlers is, oh, but it's like there's the ongoing changes, like every day. It's like we cannot confirm or deny, because it might be not. So it's there, right? And now with Rambraid, the fact that they, like, I mean, nobody will need to pull a trigger or to include something extra, so the algorithm can start taking that into consideration. But is that the algorithm will learn from what it finds? For me, it's like, yeah, it's for definitely is the next stage. It's even, I will say, might be even the next stage that a lot of people talks about regarding what can be the next level of Google to identify websites from an authority, a popularity perspective, and not only using links, or using links in a way that is they are much more difficult to manipulate and spam, and even start taking all the type of data into consideration to identify better results that are authoritative and unlikely better to answer the query of the user. So a lot of people have talked about social signals that might be taken into consideration in the future, etc. However, I can see how at some point, if the algorithm is able to self-learn and to identify in a much more meaningful ways and not only from a semantic perspective, but with all the type of connections that the algorithm can find in websites to identify relevance and authority, it might not necessarily even need any additional type of social signals or specific signals that we need to create or make just to provide that additional input to the search engine, right? But it might come from that in that way. So really, right now I am like just opening my eyes, seeing what it can be done, because really nobody is like everything AI, right? Like I am really, and beyond search, I am one of these people who think that it's scary and maybe I have watched too many times Terminator or something, but yes, it's there, and I am completely open to expect really whatever that can come from that self-learning and that capacity, because we might be impressed of how it can evolve, and it's not necessarily only by like logical iteration of what there is already, but completely evolutions of what we don't even preview to happen. Yeah.
So much can happen so quickly. It's amazing to think that the iPhone launched, the first version of the iPhone launched less than 10 years ago. So to think of what might happen in the next 10 years or so, it's quite incredible as well.
Yeah, so it depends also on the device. You see, we are only talking about one specific evolution that can happen.
We're talking about what's
any searchable type of device. Yeah,
exactly, and we're talking about what's possible based upon today's devices. If devices evolve, then so much else is possible in the future as well.
Yeah, completely agree. For me, for example, the first edition, and today, coincidentally, I have seen that a couple of articles, not necessarily talking in nice ways about what the iWatch has been able to do and the functionalities, and really what has meant as a device. For me, it has been only just a little extension of what can be already done with the mobile, but a tiny bit, just to interact in an easier, non-intrusive way with certain alerts and certain information, to consume certain information, very specific. However, again, there is so much that can be done if this little device evolves with full functionality and capacity, and then it's not necessary to be with the little additional thingy with you on your hand every time, which is not natural at the end of the day. Yeah.
Aleyda, you've offered so many interesting thoughts, and I'm sure you could keep on going for hours. So hopefully we'll have to have you back on a future show, because I'm sure you could keep on going for a long time, and people would be interested in that. But to conclude just now, what do you think is one thing that businesses need to be doing just now that is still going to be a very valid strategy in the year 2020?
For me, it will be, despite even if in the future, for example, with self-learning capacity, Google can end up identifying the meaning of content without much more information. I think that a good thing to be done right now, for which we haven't seen the full power, is semantic search, and with semantic search, I mean that we can give input to the search engine to establish and to define the meaning of our content with structure markup, and there are much more easier ways to implement it nowadays, and there are much more type of content that we can mark up, that we can tag, and in these ways to be able to get all the type of results and more visibility. That doesn't necessarily means more rankings, but visibility with the search functionalities that are evolving.
What's the one easy way to mark up content at the moment?
Well, right now the easier way there is, if you have a CMS, like for example WordPress, there are a lot of plugins that provide support to include the right structure markup, the right microdata in place in your HTML to be able to be there without even going to the code. Also, and also with JSON, you really need to only include certain lines of code there to be able to mark up that. So yes, I think that until now that has been the main challenge, that you need to really go to the code. At some point, Google also had the little tool to be able to specify markup without going to the code too, but I never thought that that really took as traction as they were looking to. However, I can see how it's important. It's definitely important. It's meaningful, and hopefully it's going to provide much more in the future than just rich snippets in the results.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us again. Where can people get hold of you online? What kind of websites, what kind of social profiles do you want to give people?
Yes, people can. Well, you can search for me for sure on my website, aleydasolis.com. I have also my consulting website, orainti.com. And I'm also usually in Twitter too, at Aleyda, with my first name. I am always interacting and sharing there. And I'm really looking forward to hear your thoughts of what I have shared here, because really this is our rough ideas, and I really like this type of question because it makes me think and assess and evaluate everything what is happening and it might happen in the future. It's very exciting for me. Yeah.
Tweet Aleyda and tell her your thoughts, everyone. Yes. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a good day.